Welcome everyone to this Ask Me Anything EcoVadis session. I'm here with William today. We'll just start in 2 minutes from now, just to make sure the last few people tune in. But it's great to have you. For those that just joined, we'll be ready to start in 2 minutes. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
And it's always good to know who we're talking to. So I'm in Europe, but if you want to tell us where you are. All right. Okay, well, it's 5:02 here in Paris, and probably 2 past something where you guys live. So welcome again. Today's session is a short one. It's really an Ask Me Anything session. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them. If you don't know how you can prepare your EcoVadis certification in the right way, well, William, you used to work there as an analyst, so you probably have clues for our attendance today.
Yeah, absolutely. I used to work as an analyst at EcoVadis for over 1.5 years. So I was the person analyzing your EcoVadis assessments. I did about 150 companies whilst I was there. So I do know the methodology quite well now.
Right. And it's interesting because most of the people that are here today, they wish they could speak to an analyst because they sometimes get a scorecard, but not necessarily understand how they can improve. And William, you're helping most of our clients on the front line, really, to help them prepare the best way. So thank you for being here.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All right. So again, it's an Ask Me Anything session. So we'll be done in 20 minutes, 25 minutes. But if you're here today, feel free to ask any questions you have. I see that we're already receiving a lot of questions, which is great. But you can use the questions feature of the chat to do so. And before we start, just to tell more about our company, Beaver, we're an approved EcoVadis training partner. What that means is we help companies in the US, in Europe, and we're starting to help companies in Asia as well prepare their EcoVadis assessment, but beyond EcoVadis, really build proper CSR or sustainability management systems. And Will, can you tell us more about what it means when we say a sustainability management system for EcoVadis?
Absolutely. So the idea of a sustainability management system is having the internal structure and process to be able to address extra financial risks, impacts, and opportunities. So impacts are direct impacts that a company has on society and the environment from their operations. And then risks or opportunities are more linked to the interactions of a business with the environment and society and the impacts they have on a business's bottom line. So they can be anything from I have an impact on the environment by producing GHG emissions, or I have a risk because I have a sort of an office which is on the coastline, so there's a risk that this office gets flooded in the next years. And I have an opportunity because I work in energy and I have the opportunity to provide green energy for all by focusing my product on green energy. So those are the different risks, impacts, and opportunities. Depending on your business, they'll be different. But the idea is to have an internal structure to prove that you're addressing them and have a structure in place to continuously improve addressing them.
Right, Will, and a number of companies that are here today are are here because one of their clients asked them to prepare the assessment one day. And these companies, they used to prepare, do their services and products. Everything was happening fine. Their buyer was happy, but one day the buyer came up and said, "I need you to start your ISO 26000 journey and
Mm.
get an EcoVadis assessment."
Yeah, so it's all part of a big movement, political movement, societal movement, whatever you want to call it, since COP21 in 2015 of the implementation of what's called the Green New Deal in Europe, which is a set of regulations that imposes standards on investors, big businesses, regulators, etc., on extra financial issues. So you're starting to see funds and large companies that have complicated supply chain have regulatory requirements in analyzing the performance of companies in their value chain. So this is the top-down approach to sustainability regulation that you're seeing in action. Um, and EcoVadis is a part of this because their business model is based on getting big, large organizations like BNP Paribas, like SNCF in France, to basically set standards for the people they buy products and services from.
Yeah.
And they do that by analyzing sustainability management systems.
And William, one of the leading companies is Schneider Electric. We know they're asking also a lot of stuff from their suppliers, so they could have been there. But basically, all these large corporations, they're driving sustainability and they want to make sure that their supply chain is on board and that they can trust and manage the risks linked to their supply chain. So this is why they're asking you to start your sustainability journey if you haven't done so yet. And so with this regard, it can be seen as a constraint, because one day you have to do EcoVadis, and what is it? How do we do it? But it really has a lot of benefits for an organization as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of understanding where you're at, it's a very important exercise because it's going to tell you what's missing in my management system, what risks am I not addressing, what impacts am I not addressing, and that for a client that's buying your product or an investor that's investing in your company is really key for them because they want to know that you have the structure in place to manage those risks and impacts. Otherwise, they are going to have to look at companies who have the structure in place. But part of the process is a continuous communication system between clients and their suppliers. So clients and big organizations are looking to create a communication channel with you of continuous improvement and saying, okay, you might not be addressing this risk right now, but how can we help you implement actions so that you are addressing the risk? What do you need to know? Where's the knowledge gap? And how do you want to improve? And that's definitely part of the process that you need to understand is that companies aren't expecting you to be gold medal in one go. They're expecting you to get ready for projecting in 5 years' time. So in 5 years' time, are you ready for climate scenarios? Are you ready for social scenarios that are going to radically impact your business? And so this is a whole process of getting ready for the changes that we're seeing to our society.
Right. And before we move on, and hi to all the people that are saying hi as well. Yeah, Andrea, yes, it was nice to have you on the webinar with Schneider. We also do theme-focused sessions. So if you want to get a closer deep dive on social or environmental topics or ethics or procurement, feel free to register here on the link. And one thing that you were saying, Will, is EcoVadis really is an assessment. It's an online questionnaire. It's not really a label or a certification as most people think.
Yeah, it's really rating your ability to manage risk, impacts, and opportunities. It's not judging what your impact is. So if you have really bad GHG emissions, it's not going to judge you on that. It's going to judge you on your structure and internal processes to manage those GHG emissions. So yeah, it's not looking at your impact. It's looking at your ability to manage your impact.
Yeah. And yeah, it's good to see you again, Fanny. we know a lot of suppliers from Schneider Electric or even Bouygues or other, L'Oreal as well. We work with them to make sure they prepare and are compliant with their buyers' demands. So um, very interesting to have you guys here today. So how does it work? And I know time's running already, and we only have a quick session today. But Will, if you want to tell us the ins and outs really of EcoVadis.
Absolutely. So in sustainability, there are a number of different themes and topics, and EcoVadis has identified 21. So there's 9 environmental, 7 social, um, 6 ethical, and 2 in procurement. I think that adds up to 21. And these 21 are going to be activated or not, depending on your industry, your size, and your geolocation. So as a company, you'll probably have around 14 of those topics activated. And for each of those topics, EcoVadis is expecting you to have a plan, do, check, act cycle in place. So this is these 3 dimensions, policies, actions, and results, which are basically the proof that you have a structure in place to manage this risk or opportunity that EcoVadis has identified for you. So the first dimension is policies, which are basically what are your objectives to manage GHG emissions? What are your objectives to manage better careers and training within your company? What are your what's your action plan for product lifecycle? What's your objective for ensuring that you're making better procurement decisions from a social or environmental perspective? And they want these to be, quantifiable objectives with dates so that you can, track performance and understand whether you're reaching your objectives or not. And that's key as well. Along with that, there's a number of structural requirements on policy documents, which I won't go into. The endorsements, they're basically external initiatives which set best practices for objective setting on certain topics. So on, carbon, you've got SBTI. On general sustainability issues, you've got the UN Global Compact, 10 principles of the UN Global Compact. And then basically that's the policy side that's analyzed. Then what you're going to do is implement actions to try and meet your objectives. So those are a mix of different projects, of procedures, of audits, things that you've done internally to try and reach your objectives. So proof of those can be variable from procedure documents to risk analysis to trainings, anything internally that's done to try and reach certain objectives on sustainability. And similar to endorsements, EcoVadis is going to see if you have any certifications. They're basically looking to understand if the projects you're implementing are, again, audited against best practice. So you're not just putting random projects in place to look good, but you're actually putting projects in place that are related to your objectives and logical within a management system. So that's why they look at you guys having certifications. Coverage, this is for companies that are over 1,000 employees, and it's to understand to what extent projects have been implemented throughout the whole organization, because it's very easy to train, 5 managers at the HQ on corruption, but that doesn't mean that all employees that subject to corruption externally know what corruption is. So we want to see that everyone across the organization is aware about corruption. So that's the coverage analysis. And then results. So you've put actions, so you put objectives in place, you put actions in place to reach your objectives, and now you're going to track whether you managed to reach your objectives or not through a list of different KPIs that express performance through different angles on different sustainability topics. And then basically you're going to prove that year on year you're getting better at addressing this sustainability issue. And finally is the 360, which you guys don't have control over. 360 is an artificial intelligence that EcoVadis developed that goes on a database of websites around the world, media websites, NGO websites, law firm websites, to understand whether there's been positive or negative articles written on you. And this is going to then make an average of positive and negative articles to give you a 360 score.
Well, thanks, Will. There's this question because this is the first really Ask Me Anything session that we have. The question here is, how can you share your scorecard so we can give you immediate information? You can do this before the session by sending it to us by email, or you can copy paste your scorecard in the chat and just ask your questions, and we'll give you an answer on how you can improve.
Hmm.
But Fanny and anyone here, we are happy to take some time for you guys and give you answers. And I see that Bernard is here today. Hi, Bernard. It's good to see you again. We've had our bunch of opportunities to speak in the past, and Schneider Electric really is one of the companies that is leading the way in terms of supplier engagement by organizing some sessions with their suppliers. Obviously, today we have suppliers from different large corporations, but it's fair to say that Schneider Electric is embarking a lot of companies in their sustainability journey, William.
Absolutely. It's definitely, one of the SDGs is partnerships, and part of how EcoVadis is pushing companies to work on this partnership thing is to ensure that value chain communication is valued within large organizations.
Yeah, and when you say SDG, William, obviously not everyone has your background, but you do mean Sustainable Development Goal, right, on the
Yeah,
global level,
absolutely.
right? And there's a lot of questions about the proof system. So, question here, William, is we do a lot of stuff on environmental topics. We've started having half our vehicles electric now, but sometimes companies they fail to show it to EcoVadis, and so they don't really get the points in the end. And we know it's possible for companies to improve and their score. Usually, they do most of the stuff, but they fail
Hmm.
to formalize it or have a proper management system. And Bernard in the chat is telling us that one of the suppliers here won 18 points. So it is possible when you
Hmm.
understand the ins and outs to make a gap, really, a step
Yeah.
change. And we've seen it with one of our customers this week, Yes Electric. They won 30 points,
Hmm.
which is crazy, but which
Yeah.
shows that it's not about optimizing your score. It's really about just doing things right.
Building.
Yeah.
It's about building a management system. And part of the big error in this is, as you say, we do a lot of actions on carbon, for example, but carbon isn't the only sustainability risk of a company, and often it's not the main sustainability risk. So sometimes the industry has, quite a negative impact for companies that don't have a structured management system by creating these trends like carbon trends. Obviously, it's really important to reduce your carbon emissions, but by only addressing carbon, you're missing out on a number of other risks, impacts, and opportunities, which are extremely relevant to your bottom line. So that's my main tip would be to address all the activated themes in EcoVadis. And that means policies, objectives, actions in place, and KPIs to track your reporting for each of those activated 21 sustainability criteria. And then obviously it's about building a proof system. So documental proof, which are internal documents to your management system, which provide descriptions and information of the things that you do to reach the objectives that you set.
And
Um,
yeah, William, to your point, I think it's a very valid point to tell all the companies. We've got just under 100 companies today logged in. That it's not just about environmental stuff. So when we hear about sustainability and CSR or ESG, call it as you want, or
mhm,
SDG, well, we think, oh, I need to track my carbon emissions, which you do. This is definitely something you should do. But in terms of building a management system and preparing your EcoVadis assessment, it is not really the priority, as you were saying. The
mhm,
priority surely is to have a proper environmental policy that covers all the topics, but it's really about putting principles and commitments on paper with quantitative targets. This is what's going
mhm,
to matter to start with, and
mhm,
on not just environment, but also social stuff. Like we
mhm,
probably everyone knows that you don't have child labor in your company. That's fine, but how does EcoVadis know it if you don't tell them, if you don't put
mhm.
it somewhere on paper?
Yeah. How does EcoVadis know it? How does your client know? How does your investor know? That's the bottom line. This proof system needs to be created, and it needs to be created within a framework where you've understood what your impacts are, whether they're internalities or externalities. You have to go through this process of understanding what is my business, what extra financial risks do I have, what extra financial impacts do I have.
Right. And a question here is sometimes companies, when they end up doing the docs, they're happy they now have a doc, but they're afraid or they're scared to share it to EcoVadis because then
Mhm.
they think EcoVadis might tell it to the rest of the world. So, to the question
Mm.
here, are the docs submitted for evaluation made public or only seen by EcoVadis analysts? And it's a good question for you, Will, because you were an analyst at EcoVadis.
Yeah. So every analyst signs an NDA, so they will see all your documents, but they're not allowed to talk about them externally. And from experience, that's not the goal of the analyst. The goal of the analyst is to precisely analyze a number of different sustainability management systems, and they don't have time to think about, what's a bad performer, who's done this. They're seeing companies from all over the world, so there's no real chance that anything's going to be made public from the EcoVadis assessment.
So bottom line here, Will, is you submit your thing. EcoVadis, they have all the data security compliance,
Mm,
ISO, radio. So it's
mm,
really about you get a score, and then what Schneider Electric or Bouygues or CBRE or whoever is your client, they don't see all the details, but what they see
mm.
is your performance and your score in the end.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and you do have the option on EcoVadis to share the documents publicly if you want to. And you will get to a stage of maturity where you feel comfortable sharing these documents. That will happen.
Yeah. And I see that time is running, so um, I think a great thing to talk about is really about we're saying a lot of things about policies. I just wanted to us to go back to that, Will, and tell companies what's a good environmental policy, for example. What's it
Mm,
gonna say? How do you structure it?
absolutely. So in the environment, as I said, there are 9 key sustainability issues within the environmental topic in EcoVadis. These will be activated or not, depending on size, industry, and location. But all of those that are activated need to be included in the policy. That means you need a quantitative objective of continuous improvement for each of these topics. So it can be carbon, it can be waste, it can be water consumption, it can be material use, it can be product life cycle, it can be consumer health and safety, it can be promoting sustainable consumption. These are all the topics. And if they're activated, well, it means that your industry or your company size or your company location is concerned with this. So you should have a quantitative objective of continuous improvement. That's the main overarching goal of creating policies, is proving that you want to address this topic and become better at addressing it. And then within the actual document, um, you need to provide a scope of application. So say that this policy applies to all the employees within Acme Corporation, for example, or Beaver Corporation. This policy will also need to explain the governance. So the governance is the person responsible in your company of the implementation of the policy, and then obviously of reaching the targets that you set as well. So for an environmental policy, it can be, the head of environment or the head of energy or the head of CSR, and they'll be responsible for implementing the policy. And then they want to see a review mechanism. So a review mechanism means that year on year, you track your KPIs yearly, and after you've tracked your KPIs, you rethink about your objectives in your policy because you've understood whether you're reaching your targets or not. So the review mechanism helps EcoVadis understand that the policy is living within the organization. It's just not one document that's been made to satisfy EcoVadis or satisfy a client that's asked for an environmental policy.
All right. And obviously, you have access to the slides at the end of the webinar. You get the replay. So hang in tight to get the details of everything we're saying. And time's already flying. Will listening to you, the sun could go down and it'd be dawn already. what a joy for us to have you here. Guys, this is an example. So this one's French. If you want one in English or any other language, feel free to email us. We'll send it to you. But this is a template. And what it shows, this company got a platinum medal with an environmental policy that is really just one page. And what we want to say here is when you do things right, and obviously there's a lot of stuff in there, it's going to work out for EcoVadis, right, Will?
Yeah, absolutely. So policy, you just need to explain what your objectives are, and you can have some parts of the policy that explain how you intend to meet it. That's normal, but you're not going to explain all the actions that are in place in your company within a policy. That's not what a policy is. So it doesn't need to be that long.
All right. And one last slide I wanted to talk about, Will, today is usually companies come to us and say, hey, we need your help. Schneider Electric, for example, just random example, they're asking of us to reach 65 out of 100 to meet the average. And by June 2024, we need at least 50. What do we say to these companies? Usually what I'm going to say is, first, the medal, the score, that's not an end in and of itself. What you should aim for, obviously, is continuous improvement on building an actual robust thing and not just improving your score. But when it comes to actually getting a good score, it's not, they tell us we need 60, 70 documents. Well, it's really about common sense and having here this list of ultimate documents that we work on when we help our companies. And just as a reminder, we got 90 out of 100 with these documents.
Yeah. So there are some general documents that are just the basis of a sustainability management system that we've basically listed here. So for example, one that springs to mind is the employee handbook. In an employee handbook, most companies have an employee handbook, and you explain all the social benefits that an employee has when he enters the company. And that, to EcoVadis, is proof enough of all the social benefits within a company. So with one document, you're proving a big majority of the social actions you'll need to prove within the EcoVadis assessment. And you can create the same type of document on the environment, just a action deck which explains all the different actions that you've taken on the environment. Is useful not only for EcoVadis but for your just understanding internally. Generally, it can be sent to the board of directors for them to understand all the actions you've taken over the course of a year. It can be sent to investors. It can be sent to employees that want to help on sustainability and that start getting interested in the subject. So yeah, it's just about creating probing documents that are going to be central to your management system and live within the company strategy.
Right, and it's already the end of this session. We're receiving, as we speak now, a lot of emails. So very interesting that you guys are sharing a scorecard. We will take time to review them and give you answers about it. So thank you for attending. We still have just 2 questions to cover here. Should each document stand as its own proof, or is it acceptable to combine them? Am I allowed to declare on honor if I don't have physical proof? Well, this is the case where a company, they don't have anything to prove something, but they know they're right. So they just want to do, hereby I declare on honor that,
No, that won't be accepted within the EcoVadis methodology. What you can do is create an internal living document of a procedure to explain how it works internally. And that's a lot better because, as an employee, if you want to understand how something works, you're going to read a procedure. You're not going to go and ask the CEO how it happens. So create procedures is much more logical. In terms of combined documents, those are not allowed by EcoVadis either. There are documents that cover a lot of topics, but if you create, for example, combine an employee handbook with 4 ISO certificates, that's a document that's called combined, and that's not allowed within the EcoVadis methodology.
Well, that's amazing. Thank you for saying all this. One last question from Fanny here. How can I know that the right key sustainability issues are covered with a double materiality analysis? And here, my first answer is, if you're a small company, maybe the hassle of doing a double materiality isn't as actionable as just following what EcoVadis is telling you, or what would you say, Will?
I would say that, yeah. I think internally you can do a sort of mock double materiality analysis. So not to the extent of the requirements of the CSRD, for example, but interrogate stakeholders to understand what they think your risks and opportunities and impacts are. Um, that's a way of going about things. But as you said, EcoVadis has a whole team working on materiality for different industries. So if you are a small company, that's a very good place to start. It's like if it's activated by EcoVadis, it probably means it's material to my company. Well, it definitely means it's material to my company.
Right. Well, thank you everyone for this quick session. Again, as a reminder, pour les Français, on fait ces sessions aussi sur des thèmes. Donc, n'hésitez pas à vous inscrire avec le lien ci-dessous. If you speak English, like Will and I, myself, sorry, that's an English mistake. You are invited to come and tune in every 2 weeks to these sessions. The next one is going to be focused on social. So we will delve into the social aspects of sustainability and what you can do right now for your company to improve your score and build a strong CSR management system. I want to thank Will because you work there as an analyst, you've seen a bunch of scorecards, and you're still out there preaching truth and giving clues to everyone attending. So thanks for that, Will.
No worries, it's a pleasure.
Thank you, Reshma. Thanks, Fanny. And
thanks, everyone.
we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.